Hey guys, in part 3 of this series I'm going to focus on remembering words and phrases from watching television and film, Norwegian television and film. And there is so much content out there. It's amazing, but that actually can be part of the problem. And I've learned over time not only, sort of what to watch selectively when I'm trying to learn certain things, but also, how to watch it. So I'm going to share some of that with you guys. Maybe it'll save you some time, especially if you're just starting out. So in language learning, you have input and output. And input is hearing and reading, output speaking and writing. And if you can remember it, you can have some output. And that's hopefully what you want to do. This is also what memory research talks about. For just anything, remembering anything is input and output. So basically when you're watching TV or a film, you're adding another input. You're seeing stuff. It's very, very powerful. So here you have an apple and you're seeing the apple. You really don't need language. You can just see that's an apple. Now you have et grunt eple, and now it's being spoken too. I mean, you can hear somebody reading that, okay? Let's just say, for an example, and it all matches up. And if the three inputs that you have here all match up, then wow, it's great. You've got it made. And it should be very simple with just a little rehearsal, writing down et grunt eple and saying it over and over a few times. You should be able to remember with no problem. But that's not how TV works. TV is more like this, okay? TV and films, they'll show you one thing, but the message it complements it. Usually that's what happens. So in this case, spis sunn mat, okay, eat healthy food. It's related to the apple, but not directly, so what do you do about this, aside from just being confused and just, sort of not being able to take advantage? Well, you write this down. I keep a notepad next to the TV, and hopefully nobody touches it. It's always there. So, but see, what happens is with the apple is the visual input is so strong that you start to remember everything you ever remembered about apples. Okay, that's kind of the way the memory works. You focus on this apple, and so if you've ever been confused, especially if you're just starting to learn Norwegian and you're watching TV, this is one of the major reasons for that. And one thing I keep in the forefront of my mind when I watch TV or watch a film is I realize wasn't designed, it wasn't created to teach me Norwegian. It was created for entertainment. There are explosions going off in movies, and people are shouting and they're whispering and they're talking in dialect. I mean, that's the last thing an actor wants to do is speak clear, like they're reading a script. So they're going to use a lot of dialect. They're going to use a lot of to try to make it real and convincing. So film can be especially difficult to comprehend. But so can television. But if you keep this in mind, it's not so bad. I mean, just keep that in the forefront of your mind when you're watching, okay? And that may sound obvious, but it's weird. It's like something I never really thought about too much when I first started watching television and trying to make heads or tails of what was going on. So I've learned to watch TV objectively, and I ask, is what I'm seeing matching up with what I'm hearing? And how does it relate? Okay, and so one day, to illustrate this, one day I came into the living room, my wife was watching TV, and there was a woman walking a dog, okay? So I'm watching, and I'm looking at the dog, and I'm listening to the lady talk. They showed her walking down one street and crossing the street and then doing this. And all with the dog, walking it in the park, and then it just went on and on and on, and then she was feeding the dog and giving it water and stuff, and meanwhile she's talking. Okay, so she was talking. It was a voice overlay of her, edited over, mixed with this montage of her walking the dog. And she was saying, "Oh, it's a big problem. It's a big decision. We're going to move, and we really like our neighbors, and the whole family is involved, and all this stuff." And I understood 50% of what the lady was saying, but I could not figure out how it related to the dog, so it made no sense to me. Finally, I asked my wife. I said, "Well, what's the problem with the dog? I mean, and she explained to me that it had nothing to do with the dog. They just showed her. They were just showing her walking her dog, just because it was more interesting than, say, showing the lady sitting in the chair, or in the living room or whatever. So if it doesn't match, then it's interference. And this is where you can really get confused about what's going on. This is where you know a little bit, like you can understand, but you still get into trouble because it doesn't make any sense. And when things don't make sense in general, it feels like you're not. It feels like you're not making any progress. You're not understanding the entirety. So it's very frustrating. But so I always start out objectively looking, and at what I'm seeing, does it match? And here's another thing. One day I was watching an interview with a father and a son, and they're both from the same place. And I understood 95% of what the father was saying. He was speaking slowly and very clearly. But the son was talking really fast, and he was using a lot of slang, it turned out. Luckily enough, I was watching it with a friend, and he said, "Yeah, the kid is using slang. It's it's not bookmall or anything. It's just almost entirely dialect." And it was a dialect that I have trouble with. It's kind of from Midt-Norge, so a little bit north of Oslo. Anyhow, I could not understand the child, but I could understand the father, and this was a very important lesson to me because up until I saw this video, I was looking at the entire thing. I would say, wow, if I don't understand everybody and everything that's going on, then I've failed. I'm just not making enough progress. But this takes time to understand dialects. It takes time to understand people when they speak fast. So I've learned to focus if there are more than one person in a scene or whatever, to focus on the person that I understand the most. And if I have a lot of trouble understanding another person on TV, I just let it go. Because what you need to realize too while you're watching TV and everything is that there's more of it. This is not the only program. There's going to be, it just keeps coming actually, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you don't live in Norway, and you'll have less content to watch, but there's plenty, believe me. Unless you're focusing in on dialects, unless that's what you're doing, and that's fine too. But it's okay to take what you can get, and don't throw the whole thing away, or doubt your progress just because you don't understand everything. You'll see as you advance. It's one of those things where you realize, wow, that's pretty hard to understand. So. Subtitles. Subtitles are very important. They, at first, when I didn't know what to make of subtitles, but as I went along, I realized what an amazing tool they are. And so let's take a look at subtitles here. Unlike closed captioning, which is sort of trying to be word for word, subtitles are a close translation. And at first I thought, well, that's no good. It's not matching up exactly with what is being spoken. But actually it is very good, because if it's a good job, if they did a good job, they're giving you an alternative translation Usually it's shorter. Well, I'll explain a little more about that. But the standard length is 6 seconds, so you can time it. You know, the maximum length they'll be up is 6 seconds for some reason. There are a lot of different companies, and you can see the credits for who did the subtitles usually after the program is over, and they're very different. They can be inconsistent. You know, some of them are very good, and some of them are not so good. And well, some of them are more useful for you as a person who's learning a language. Let's put it that way. The translation of sentences are often shortened so that they're easier to read. This is, you know, what the translation or the subtitle companies, the people that produce this, they have found out that if they're shorter, people like them better, which is not a problem because you can learn how to say something in a shorter sentence in another way, like I said. Subtitles are almost never produced for you to learn a language unless it's a language learning show. Then it's meant there for people to understand in general what's going on or to sort of get the gist of it, and it's meant for hearing impaired people too. So keep that in mind. It's not there to teach you how to speak Norwegian. Research shows that same language subtitles are the best, and in my experience, that's what I've found. Same language, even if they don't match up exactly. If you're watching like a Danish show with Bookmall subtitles, that's excellent. Or Swedish with Bookmall, and a lot of times you'll just have subtitles from Norwegian to Bookmall or Nynorsk. Okay, so that you never know. Some subtitles are in Nynorsk, so if you're curious about or you're learning that, there's plenty of them out there. And if you live here in Norway, then you've probably noticed that, So every now and then I like to read Nynorsk subtitles or learn a little bit more about them. There's no real... I don't know if there's a system for how they decide that, but it doesn't seem like it. Some teachers, if this might be more useful for people who don't live in Norway, teachers recommend that you watch a film with your own language subtitles to sort of get the gist of it, like if it's a Kon-Tiki or something. And then take a break and watch it again without any subtitles and see if you can sort of gain something from it. I'm not a big fan of film for learning. A lot of times I just get distracted by the movie. If it's a good movie, I just, I wind up watching the movie and I get too distracted by that. But other people, that may be your thing. So now the dialogue from same language subtitles, when it's different, like I said, or it's when it comes over from your language to Bookmall, this is really good for something called negotiation of meaning. And that basically what that is when you're having a conversation in Norwegian and you can't remember how to say what you want to one way, you'll have an alternative way, and that is part of conversation, learning how to converse in Norwegian. You negotiate the meaning. There are many, many ways to say the same thing, many, many ways to express yourself, and these subtitled translations provide these different alternatives, so they're very useful. Phrases in same language subtitles provide scaffolding. Scaffolding, what the heck is that? Okay, scaffolding is basically, and there's a paper, there's a link, you can read more about this, is the way mothers teach language to their children or caregivers. So, for example, a child will say, like äpple, trying to say I like apples, and the mother will respond saying liker du äppler, liker du äppler. So it's basically providing a way to go just beyond what you know, and it's one step at a time. So here, even though the TV or a movie it's just gonna be pumping it out. It's not as personal as, say, learning from somebody that's right there, but it's a steady stream. Okay, so it's up to you to sort of look for words that you know, and in this case, so say here is a cooking show, and they're telling you need to cut up the apples, cut up äpplena. Okay, so you already know äpple, and you're seeing they're cutting it up, and this is like a cooking show, is like a how-to show. A lot of times there's really not a lot of music and not a lot of distracting explosions in the background. People are pretty clear about what they're trying to show you how to cook something, so they're focusing in on what they're doing. And so in this case, you can double check, write it down, and check Google Translate or whatever. Ask your Norwegian friends or somebody who knows Norwegian and find out what it was, and now you will remember when you rehearse this, or I do, I remember the show. I'll remember the person who was cutting up the apple and everything. And interestingly enough, it goes in with the apple memory and with everything you remember about apples too. So when you're learning stuff, it's most effective, and remembering is most effective when it's slightly beyond what you already know, because it's linked and it has context. So rather than just learning a cut up äpplena on a flashcard, this way it really, after you know a little about apples, and et grund äpple, you can start to see. And as you learn grammar, it's sort of, you learn the grammar, it gets reinforced. You can see it in action. I just took a picture of my notes. These are the cleanest they are. Okay, subtitles come really fast, and I wrote these down while I was watching Kill Bill 2, translated over into bookmall underneath. And what's really cool is I enjoyed the movie. I was able to write down a lot of really useful sayings and dialogue, and later on when I read these, I remember who said it. I remember the character in the movie, the scene, the whole deal. It goes right into my long-term memory. So you can, and these were very good subtitles. They were excellent. Of course, when you're writing them down, you have to write them down very quickly, and you're going to miss the next subtitle probably, especially if the dialogue is going very quickly. So really, I can't recommend that enough, to get in the practice of writing down translated bookmall subtitles. That is, or nynorsk. If you're learning nynorsk, the same thing. So basically, just to sum it up, and I know a lot of this sounds obvious and whatnot, but maybe people haven't heard of this or whatever. Maybe one thing you hadn't thought of, or what, and it may help you. Choose programs. I find where if I'm looking to learn, instead of choosing something that's entertaining, I'll just look for something where people are speaking clearly and slowly. Like I've noticed with children's programs, you would think they would be very helpful, but the characters are a lot of times they're crazy and they use funny voices, and they're not even talking about anything that's relevant to an adult's life. It's very interesting how that works. So I look at it as is this going to help me? is it going to help me, or am I, or is it just going to be fun to watch? Like I watched a Russian movie translated over into Book Mall, and the movie was great, but it was distracting, and also the Russian terms and everything didn't translate very well. So I wound up enjoying the movie, but not really learning or remembering much, except that the movie was a lot of fun. So, like I said, keep a notebook and a pen near the TV so you can jump up and write something down quick, because things come and go unless you have a DVD or something. And even then, I mean, just keep be in the habit of doing that, and you'll be amazed. I mean, otherwise the stuff just evaporates. But like I said, if you write it down, chances are you'll remember the movie, the scene, the actor or actress, and everything. So documentaries, I'm not really going to recommend a lot of specific shows here. I mean, that's really something that you should get into the sort of habit of deciding for yourself. One thing, if something works good for me, it may not necessarily work really well for you. So all I'll say, I'm going to put some links in the description, but I like documentaries and how-to videos, and there are a bunch of other programs that are like that, where the language hasn't been, sort of set in the background. The language it matches what people are doing, and you can hear everything. You can hear it clearly. That's basically what it is. There are documentaries that can really be confusing, and so it's not something you can depend on. You really have to develop the skill to choose what you're looking at. Really important, look for words that you already know. So if you're just starting out learning Norwegian, you do know some words. You know the word jeg, you know the word spisa, or whatever it is that you learn. Look for those words and how people are using them. That's very important. So just because you're just starting out doesn't mean you can't use that scaffolding technique. So you're going up a step. You start out simple, and then you just keep going. That's how it works. Don't worry about the understanding everything. No matter what. Some days I really have trouble understanding what I'm reading and what I'm seeing. Other days I can understand a lot of it, and that is also by chance. Sometimes you're going to run into a series of things that are complicated, or they're not based, they have no relation to anything that you know already, and it feels like, wow, I'm just wasting my time. I'll never learn this language. But the truth is that you are, I mean, it just takes time. And the other thing about, remembering and memory is sometimes it doesn't seem like you're remembering something, but all of a sudden you do. You remember, like with a flashcard, you remembered a complicated sentence, the whole thing. You got most of it right. And so there are surprises with that. It takes the brain time to process information. So, lastly, I'll just say that in between, or at some point doing all this, after watching a program actively and everything, take a walk, do something else, just relax. A lot of times they say that looking at a screensaver of nature or something like that, this gives your brain time to process the information, and which it needs. And also, I've read that many places that sleep is where that happens too. So all of a sudden later on, it may click for you after your brain has sort of put everything in the proper folder inside there. It's not an instantaneous thing. So keep that in mind, with what you're doing, as far as watching TV and film. There's a lot of information. So if I've forgotten anything, I'll put it down in the description or in the comments. That's about it. Thanks a lot for watching. Ha det bra.